Hello out there, this is the Irate Veteran coming at you with another video. Any veterans out there that need any veteran to veteran advice, just go to vamadness.com, fill out the contact sheet, and I'll be happy to advise. And by the way, I have lots of videos out there. I am very busy helping veterans. So if you have questions, please first search my subject videos because I may have already answered your questions. So look through those first. Watch the videos in their entirety. No skipping around. Anyway, so let's jump right into supplemental claims. VA Form 20-0995. It is a regional office level request. You must submit new and relevant evidence. We'll talk about that. This form is used to establish a compensation benefit in reference to a previously decided decision. If you file this form within 1 year of that previous decision and you win, you will keep your effective date from your previous decision. However, if you go past 1 year, right, you will lose that effective date, right? That claim, after 1 year, it will close. You can still file this claim to get your issue addressed. But again, your effective date will be from the time you submit your new evidence, not from your previously cited claim because you let it close. So I would say don't let your claim close, right? That way you guard if you have something to say it within that 1 year, okay? Let's jump right into how to fill out the form. Pretty simple. The heading, right, is just your personal information. Fill it out. We're talking about compensation, so check compensation. Block 13, there is a little item on here that says opt-in from SOC or SSOC. That stands for Statement of Case or Supplemental Statement of Case. So if you still are under the old system, and I find it hard to believe at this date there would be hardly any of you left, but if you have one of those forms, then you can opt into the new system should you want to, right? Just check this and fill out this form, right? So 13A, you're going to identify your specific issue you're talking about. Now, in that block, there likely is not enough space for you to explain anything about your specific issue. Now, all you're required to do is identify the issue, right? For example, I'm talking about bilateral metatarsal. I have no idea if that's how you pronounce it, but that's how I'm going to pronounce it. And I'm also see the attached explanation. Why? There's not enough room for me to fit 6 pages of explanations here. And that's what I need to do to justify my claim. So that's what I'm doing, right? But I'm letting them know right up front what the issue is, how I'm going to explain my issue that warrants service connection. And then, of course, there's the date of the decision notice. Any questions about that, just look at your decision. The front will look something like this, Department of Veteran Affairs, file number, your name, file number. And then, of course, date of the rating decision. That's the date they're looking for, right? And then, of course, under the decision portion, it will have what your specific issue is. In my case, service connection for bilateral metatarsal is denied, right? That's my issue, right? So, the specific issue is the condition, right? So, that's what's here, right? So that's all there is to those 2 blocks. And we'll get into the explanation. And then let's go to block 14. There's nothing to fill in. But this is where you figure out, you'll notice that it says you must submit new and relevant evidence. All right. That's not an option, right? Notice it's says must, right? It doesn't say you can if you want to, right? It says must. So you must, right? I have had veterans contact me and say, no, my VSO says I don't have to submit any new evidence, right? Well, I'm just saying the form says must, right? So, and by the way, you're trying to win your claim, right? And if you're you need to do everything you can. So this claim allows you to submit that new evidence. So do that, right? here's the VA portion of the denial in a couple of short paragraphs, right? And you see the examiner, bottom line here, examiner opinion, it is less likely as not, less likely as not that the foot pain noted in service was metatarsalgia. It's more likely solely the diagnosis of pes planus, right, which is flat feet. So basically what the examiner's saying is that as far as he's concerned, the pain that was reported in service has to do with flat feet, which is basically pain around the arch of your foot, right? And metatarsalgia is pain at the balls of your feet. So he's basically determined that, according to my service record, all my pain is just about flat feet, right? I didn't have any pain at the balls of my feet, so I probably didn't have that condition. Okay, I get what he's saying. Okay, he's wrong, right? But that's what he's saying, right? Or she, whoever the examiner is. And then additionally, and that's about direct service connection. In other words, he's talking about directly related to my service, right? But they also talk about secondary service connection in the denial, which is additionally the examiner opinion, it is less likely than not that metatarsalgia is related to flat feet or arthritis, which I'm both service connected for, right? The examiner stated neither of those haven't, there's no medical literature to support there's a relationship, right? So those are the two issues I have to, counter, right? I have to say, well, I'm going to submit new information, that says something different from what they're saying, right? So that I can win my claim, right? So those are the relevant issues, is that there's no direct relation to my flat of metatarsalgia to my service, and there's no secondary relationship between service-connected conditions and the currently diagnosed condition, right? So that's what I have to counter, right? So I know that's the research I'll have to do, right? On part 15 is pretty self-explanatory also. If you have records out there at a VA facility or some other government facility, you can list those facilities and the dates of those records, and the VA will go get those for you, right? And thus they'll have your new evidence then. But I say don't do that, right? Go get your own records, right? It's a lot faster than letting the VA go through the process of getting your records. You go get your records, right? It's really easy to get your records from wherever you're going for treatment, right? Get them yourself and submit them with your claim, right? So also, on this is, of course, block 14, 15 are under, part 3, which is new and relevant evidence, but there's no place to list what your other, they put down here, where, you could list government facilities, but I have 19 medical treatises, right? Medical, literature that's going to support my claim, but there's no place to list it on the form, right? So obviously I'm going to send it in with my claim, but I don't feel comfortable not mentioning it on the front under the new evidence. So I'm going to mention it, right? And I would suggest you do the same, so that at least on the front of the form, it's clear what you've done in the way of submitting evidence. Like if you go up and look at, because I like it to be clear, right? I'm identifying the condition and I'm telling them I'm submitting an explanation that's 6 pages long. And then down here, I'm telling them I'm also submitting 19 medical articles to support my, claim, right? And that I'm sending them with, it's accompanying this form, right? So that there's, later there'll be no oh, well, you didn't say anything, right? Well, I've got it here, right? And I don't trust the VA to do anything, by the way. So I want to just make sure I do what I can do. Now, when you go down to block 16, right, there's really, of course, you have to sign it and date it, but there's a little checkbox about a 5103 notice, right? The 5103 notice is basically just like a legal little notification that lets you know basically what you need in the way of evidence to justify your claim. you need to check this box, right? If you don't, right, they're going to mail you a copy of the notice or email you a copy of the notice if you identified your email. And more than likely, they'll just mail it to you, right? So you're going to delay your claim. It's easier for you to just say, I went and looked at the notice on my own, because they give the link here, right? So do that, right? And check the box, because you don't need to delay your claim by not checking the box, right? Check the damn box, right? So that's basically all there is to the form. It's a pretty simple form to fill out, right? Where the heart of a supplemental claim is the explanation of why you should be service connected. And I always recommend, with any type of claim you're filing, that you take control of the narrative, right? You're the one who needs to supply the logic for why your claim should be service connected, right? So you need to write that logic out, right? Don't let them figure out what things are. First of all, they really don't have the capacity to figure out logical how one thing relates to another thing. They just don't got that, right? So don't expect them to do it. You do it, right? And so now let's get onto that, right? So here's what I'm saying. When they've said there's nothing in my service record about pain at the balls of my feet, right? So they're denying it on a direct basis because there was no pain at the balls of my feet, right? In my service medical record, right? Well, I've only went to sick call twice for my feet, right? And one of those is when I broke my foot, right? So, there's not a lot in there about my feet, their exact condition. So in 2015, when I was actually going through my foot claim, right, I wrote a statement and I specifically put in my statement that there was pain at the balls of my feet. Well, you see, so I did have pain at the balls of my feet in service, right? Oh, it's not in my service record, but it's in my statement. They don't get to ignore my statement. My statement's perfectly credible. The doctor is required to consider I'm reporting there was pain at the balls of my feet, right? So this is a challenge that he said there wasn't, because he's only looking at the medical record. Remember, the VA is required to look at all of your evidence, and there's plenty of case law, and as a matter of fact, there's regulations that specifically say they have to look at all the evidence, and they're required to consider your statement, right? And unless it's not credible, unless they deem it not credible, they have to accept it as truthful, right? Because I submitted a certified statement, right, specifically stating that, hey, I had pain at the balls of my feet, right? So they don't get to say I didn't, right? So the doctor hasn't considered that. This will force them to have to do that. Now, notice, this has nothing to do with new evidence. I'm talking about evidence that's already in the record. Now, when you submit a supplemental claim form, of course you need new evidence, right? But that doesn't mean you don't argue every aspect of the decision that the VA got wrong, right? So, and because now if this is the only argument I had, yes, I'd be filing a higher level review because I'd be talking only about information that's in the record, right? But since the only way I could not only argue what's in the record that the VA got wrong, right, but to argue other things, new things, I have to submit a supplemental claim form, right? So to do both, I have to do a supplemental claim, right? So, but that doesn't mean that because you're filing new information to justify some things, that doesn't mean you ignore the other things the VA screwed up on, right? You explain your entire argument when you submit your explanation, right? So that's what I'm doing here. I'm challenging the fact that they didn't look at my statement like they should have when they made their medical determination. So that's a direct service connection. That should easily win my claim by itself. But I'm not leaving it there because I have a much stronger argument on the secondary basis anyway, right? So that's where I'm really going to challenge their denial reasoning, right? Which is the medical examiner's determination that there was no there's nothing to support that flat feet or arthritis can cause metatarsal. Well, that's just wrong. I mean, they're saying there's no literature to support it, but there is. I found plenty of it, right? So I'm stating that, but I'm also stating that, listen, there's other conditions that you haven't considered that are in the record that also can lead to the condition I'm claiming, right? So, for example, I'm telling them both of my ankles are service-connected. And I found medical literature that ties my ankle conditions to the metatarsal, right? I'm also service-connected for bunions. Again, they haven't considered that, right? And I found medical literature, again, to support they cause metatarsal. And in all my lower extremity conditions, I found 3 aspects of those conditions that are noted in the record that I have: hypermobility of the first ray, overpronation, and hallux valgus, right? Valgus, right? I have all those conditions, and I found medical literature that says they all cause the condition I'm claiming, right? So I found medical literature that not only supports arthritis and flat feet cause the condition, but that my ankles cause it that are service-connected. My bunions cause it that are service-connected. And aspects of my lower extremity conditions that are noted in the record also cause it, right? So I'm going to point all of that information out backed by medical literature, right? And simply argue it like this, right? You identify your sources and quote the relevant passages, right? And that's basically what I'm doing here. I'm submitting these articles that justify, service connection on a secondary basis. And for instance, they're saying that flat feet, aren't related to metatarsal. Well, I'm saying they are, and I'm submitting an article. Now, again, I'm identifying the source. I'm identifying it in 2 ways: that what the source is, and then exactly the title of the source, right? Where, like, for instance, the first source I'm using is an actual medical textbook. And since I, do a lot of, I want to make sure that what I say is correct. So I bought a few medical textbooks, right? Things that are used at medical schools and whatnot to train people to, do medical stuff, right? And this is a medical textbook. It's called Neal's Disorders of the Foot. I have the 8th edition. There's a new edition out, but I have the 8th edition. And on page 100, under consequences of flat feet, right? In other words, if you have flat feet, here are some consequences because you have that, right? And it says flexible flat foot causes, I have flexible flat feet, right? Causes or is associated with many foot and lower limb pathologies, including foot pathologies such as metatarsal. Well, wait a minute. The VA said there's no type of relationship between flat feet and metatarsal. Well, I have a medical textbook that says, VA, in your face, right? Right? You people, did you go to any type of medical training? Because here's a medical textbook that says there is a relationship, right? But not only that, I found many articles that support that contention, right? And here's another one. Now, I'm identifying it as a medical treatise, right? I'm identifying the article, Effects of Metatarsal Padding on Pain and Function Ability in Metatarsal, right? It's the Scandinavian Journal of Surgery, page 333. And then I quote it, metatarsal is often related to common foot malpositions such as hallux valgus. I have that, right? Flat feet, which is what I'm arguing at this point. I have that. Or hypomobility of first ray. I have that. So here's an article that points to 3 conditions I have that cause the condition I also have that I'm claiming as service-connected. And that's one of the important things when you're looking at your medical literature that you find to support your contention is you need to have both the conditions, because the medical literature has to be specific to you, right? And a general relationship really isn't good enough. For example, let's say, for instance, the Scandinavian Journal here says hypermobility of the first ray, can cause metatarsalgia. So let's say, okay, you have metatarsalgia, you're trying to get that service connected, and you think, well, I might have the hypermobility of the first ray, so I'm going to use this article. Well, now it's not specific to you, because if that condition has hypermobility of the first ray hasn't been noted in your medical records as that you have it, well, then it's not specific to you. You see, in my case, it is noted in my record that I do have hypermobility, right? And I, of course, have the condition I'm claiming. So both ends of what they're saying here, right, is I have those. So the articles are specific to me. And so to make sure the articles are specific to you, just make sure it specifically relates to the exact conditions that you're talking about, and that you have those conditions noted in your record, either as diagnoses or aspects of the conditions that's noted in your records, right? Because they don't like specifically diagnose hypermobility of the first ray, but in their discussions of the objective evidence findings, they found that as a condition that I have. Right? So that's kind of how you just make sure these articles are specific to you, because claims get denied often where veterans submit medical treatise where they determine, well, yes, it's a general article about the subject, but it's not specific to you because you don't have those conditions. At least it's not noted in your record, right? So to avoid any of that type of my glasses are really slipping today. Anyway, hot. But anyway, you want the articles to be specific to you. So that's all there is to it, right? Is make these arguments just like this. Now, on the following slides, which are here, you're free to look at. I posted all 6 pages of my explanation. So if you want to follow this type of format when you go through and do your own claim, you could like follow this format if you think it's, a good format. I think it's a great format, right? So will I win my claim? Of course I will win my claim, right? Because the VA has no idea what they're talking about, right? And I found plenty of evidence to show that that they haven't considered the things they need to consider, right? But remember, you're required to send in these articles, right? Don't just mention them. Like I mention the article, of course. I identify the article, I identify the page. I do, let them know where to look. But, I'm sending the whole article, right? All the pages. I will upload all of them, right? So you need to do that, right? Because otherwise, okay, is the VA going to read them? Probably not, right? But one of the things you should always set up in a claim is to make sure that you win your claim. Remember, working at the regional office level, you're working with people who really are, I don't even know how to identify it. Do I say I say they're morons, right? That's my opinion, right? Right. But just like in this case that we're talking about, right, is they're saying there's no relationship between my flat feet, for example, and the arthritis in my foot and metatarsalgia. Well, I found a medical textbook that says that's wrong. Why don't they know that, right? Why am I submitting 19 articles that they seem to, they don't know, they're unaware that these things are related? What other explanation can there be that they're either constantly want to deny my claim, which I guess is one possibility, or they're morons, or both, right? So, but anyway, this is all there is to it. Irate Veteran, again, if you need any help from him, just go to vamadness.com, fill out the contact sheet, and I'll be happy to advise. Irate veteran out.